The stream restoration body of knowledge is a paper that was written in early 2014. In around from 2005 to 2010, there was a big push for certification of people that do stream restoration work. So the idea was that there was kind of different factions of river restoration folks in the industry, and they both wanted to say, hey, if you're doing river restoration work, you have to do it this way, or else you're not going to be doing good work. And they're trying to create some sort of way of certification program for stream restoration practitioners. Sue Niezegoda and some others came up with this paper in 2014, which started to look at a stream restoration body of knowledge in lieu of a certification program. So the certification program is all about kind of power and prestige, and if you're certified, and these people are the people that are allowed to certify you. If you're not certified, then you can't do this work, type of thing. Whereas a stream restoration body of knowledge was hopefully something a little bit different. It was intended to advance the practice of river restoration, and it was included in a detailed series of competencies developed as a guide for establishing a minimal level of knowledge in different fields related to the practice of stream restoration. So river restoration, as we all know, is a multidisciplinary field. So we have people that are riparian biologists. I mean, even on this call, we have riparian biologists, riparian ecologists, we have project managers, we have people that deal with construction, we have people that are wetland scientists, and we have people that are related to finance and the operation and practice of this work. And then we have a whole lot of people at different levels that do river restoration work and need to be a part of the team for these restoration projects. So the stream restoration body of knowledge is saying a successful river restoration project requires a team composed of multiple disciplinary actions, but each one of those disciplines should have a certain minimum level of knowledge related to the field that they're working in. And the idea was that we wanted a successful practice for river restoration, and we also wanted to provide people that are only in one of these fields to look at it and say, hey, well, I'm not a biologist or an ecologist, and wow, there's a lot more information out there that I would need to know if I wanted to actually do a restoration project and not involve a biologist or ecologist. And I think we've all worked on projects where we would have liked one more ologist with us on the team that we didn't have at one point. We're getting better at that. I think of some of the bigger projects that we're working on where we have a lot of disciplines we're able to pull in. And I think a lot of this falls on project managers that are able to effectively communicate in a way that it empowers all the different disciplines to work together, opposed to one discipline to just say, well, you can't do this because you're not an engineer, or you can't do this because you're not a wetland scientist, and find ways to communicate together. But we want to have a proper standard of care for the practice of restoration. So we want to be able to, at some point, get a standard of care. And it doesn't need to be detailed and the same for every project, but we want there to be at least some baseline. So no single person can be an expert in everything. And the stream restoration body of knowledge creates this voluntary idea where everybody can kind of self-evaluate themselves. And even though self-evaluation is sometimes scary, it at least is better than having no evaluation of yourself or the working group that you're working in. And it creates results that are kind of predefined that will help you refocus where you need to get more information, or maybe who you need to add to the team to reach your project needs. I sent out the paper today that's referenced here below. And what I wanted to talk today is I wanted to introduce enough about the stream restoration body of knowledge, and then talk about if it's something that, as River Shared, we want to try to adopt and use as a cooperative or a nonprofit. Since 2014, I've heard this presented in multiple places, but I don't know many people that have applied this. We have applied it with some of our interns to help them as part of their review process and help them realize how much more they have to learn. But I really haven't known of many people that tried to use this tool. We had a short period of time where at Stantec, I think Josh Gilman may be on the phone today, and Mike Adams, I don't know if he's on the phone or not, but I know that we had a short period of time where we tried to incorporate this into career development path review type things at a company. But I think that it might be beneficial as a nonprofit to help encourage in some sort of self-evaluation of where things are at. So there are a number of publications that listed out the topics that are needed for stream restoration. So this is just a list of the topics that different publications ranging from 1998 to 2012 said, hey, you need to know about these things if you're doing stream restoration. And then there's different subsets inside of each one of these topics that are related. And then it's on that idea of how much it's emphasized. So, you know, fluvial geomorphology, Skidmore 2011 said, this is an in-depth discussion and you have to know a good bit about this, opposed to not having to know much or having no coverage related to it. So related to each one of those stream restoration topics, there's a number of different courses covering each topic. So there's courses nationally that are available for people if they want to learn about bank stabilization. And in 2014, the authors could find 25 different courses covering the topic of bank stabilization. If you think of all the universities and all the information out there, a 25 may seem like a lot, but it's really not that much compared to all the universities that are out there and all the short courses and all the extension programs that are out there. There's different ways of understanding learning and having different levels of learning. So the stream restoration body of knowledge used an idea that was presented by a guy named Bloom in 1956. And what Bloom et al. Had said in 1956 is that when learning, you can learn to a knowledge level, and that's kind of like I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, knowledge level. You can learn to a comprehension level, which means you grasp the meaning of the materials, you understand the definitions, and you can interpret them in different ways. You can have an application where you can apply tools and you understand laws and concepts and principles. You can do analysis where you break things into different parts and you say, okay, well, I have an application, but now I can put these two application tools together and use this tool to help analyze something towards this other tool that I'm going to be adding to. You can synthesize something, which means you're conceiving a new way of analyzing something. So you're creating a new tool. You're creating a new way of applying some sort of law to a problem or a situation. And then you can also get to an evaluation level, which means you can judge the synthesis of others. So the stream restoration body of knowledge uses these as learn level 1 through 6. So when you look at an idea, you can say, okay, well, am I kind of I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night and I know how to spell hydrology? Or can you evaluate if somebody puts together a new hydraulic model and say, well, actually, you missed this, or that looks really good. So this is a brief idea of the stream restoration body of knowledge. These fundamental outcomes and titles, right now we're displaying hydrology, hydraulics, fluvial geomorphology, sediment transport, stream ecology, habitat, stream structure and function. And I remember years ago, Josh Gilman, Mike Luckman, and Mike Adams and I believe were the crew of folks that we came up with about 42 different functional outcomes and titles. So this is 6 of what could be 40, could be 30. And what the outcome does is it helps guide you in your learning level. So it says, solves physical problems related to hydraulic processes and applies this knowledge to analyze runoff generations, plant soil, water relationships, co-evolution of fluvial geomorphology, and hydraulic response. If you look at this and say, I don't know what co-evolution of fluvial geomorphology and hydraulic response even means, then you can pretty much guess that you're not at a learning level 6. because you're not going to be able to judge and analyze something if you don't even know what it means. Um, if you get to this idea where you understand sections of this and you understand most of the words, but you don't completely understand what is going on in the analysis, then you're probably at a comprehension level. You comprehend what you're reading, but you can't really analyze what you're reading too much. And if you get to the point where you're like, oh yeah, but what about if you did this, this, or this, or this, or you said co-evolution of fluvial geomorphology and hydraulic response, but how's that going to be related to the change in substrate when you add more sand to the system, and how can hydrology be adjusted by changes in watershed use factors and parameters? Then you're probably at a point where you're at more of an analysis. So it's self-learned, it's kind of self-evaluation, but these outcomes and definitions are meant to help lead you to a point where you don't say, oh, I'm just great at everything. I remember years ago, we tried this out with Stantec, and we had a couple people in the group that were just confident. They were very strong-minded people, and they had a lot of good abilities, and they were in a situation where, you know, they were successful in a lot of things in life. And when we looked at their evaluation, they self-evaluated themselves as being at a level 6 or level 5 for the majority of the concepts in this matrix that we put together, which was surprising to us, especially when we'd had people that would review their work and would not evaluate in the same way. So it is something where somebody can be pretty confident about themselves and say, well, I'm the best fluvial geomorphologist ever, and there's no sediment transport expert that's ever been as good as I have been. I've probably been the best sediment transport expert since sediment was created, type of thing. So there is part of this is a personality issue, and you've also, I remember having some people be on the other end, and they're like, yeah, I'm not really any good at this, I'm no good at this, I really can't do, and one of the things we had was drafting, and I remember seeing a guy that I considered pretty good at drafting that rated himself as a level 2 for drafting when he was doing a lot of plan set productions for us, and we knew that he comprehended it, but he could also analyze and change drafting. So there is some sort of idea of going through something like this with an individual and talking about things to help them have a better self-evaluation of where they stand related to a body of knowledge. But I think there's value in just putting together something that's adapted, or maybe it's just exactly the same as stream restoration body of knowledge, but putting together and start endorsing people to try to self-evaluate what they know related to stream restoration. So with that said, I'm going to open up to the group now for a little bit. So the people on the line today that want to talk or want to give opinion, what's your ideas about adding something like this into River Shared, or just doing something completely different, or is it even needed?
Dave, it's Brad.
Yeah.
It's interesting. To be honest with you, I wasn't privy to a lot of these conversations. Either that you did it without me, or I wasn't interested and didn't set aside the time to do it. I do find it interesting. I remember the whole business about, you know, sort of whether you're good or bad, and some people overestimate their abilities and other people underestimate their abilities. It's a really interesting concept, and I'm certainly willing, with my involvement in River Shared, to give it some thought. For right now, my focus is on trying to get things up and running, so I don't really have the time to this is like yet another sort of significant piece of work to try and figure out what to do with this. So, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I like it. I want to go back and read the original paper. But yeah, for right now, I got a lot on my plate to just try and get the River Shared thing up and running. So I think it's an interesting idea. I think the idea about self-evaluation rather than sort of, external evaluation is a good one, because I think that's in keeping with the River Shared philosophy, in the sense that it's an internal thing that you could do with yourself. But anyway, so yeah, I'm all ears, other than the fact that I can't cope with it right now. So other than that, it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, would anybody on the call have a desire to put any effort or time in this? Or maybe we just wait for a couple of years or a couple months or whatever. Or maybe we
Yeah, I
just
was going
don't
to say, I
engage.
don't think it needs to be a couple of years. I think it's just we need to get this thing up and running first, and then I think this is an interesting dimension that it's really neat because it plays into the idea about developing staff and developing the personal skills. So it's like the human capital side of the equation, which we were having a discussion ourselves on the last call, and we concluded that that was probably an area where we were weak. So I think this is a way to really bolster that segment of the services that River Shared could provide. But it's like I said, I just don't have the time to deal with it right now. So that's my 10 cents worth.
Hey Dave, this is Stallman. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing that.
Hey, I just wanted to make an observation. Both the Society of Wetland Scientists and Society for Ecological Restoration have certification programs now, but each of them took at least 20 years before, from inception of the society until they really started rolling out those certification programs. So, my point is, if you let this roll for a couple of years or something before really chewing into it, it's not really unprecedented. And it's probably not a bad idea to just kind of let it simmer. In the meantime, it would be worth investigating both those two certifications and see how those programs have been set up, and if they look like they're decent models for what you guys are wanting to do. All in all, I think it's a great idea to have something out there certification-wise, even if it is self-evaluation, just to be able to let people know who are in this field what you really need to be focused on, what you really need to know in order to be successful.
Thank you, Matt.
Hey Dave, this is Josh Gilman. How are you guys? Looks like nap time at your house this morning.
Yeah, he was up a little this morning.
Yeah, I wanted to comment. I've heard I've engaged in this discussion a little bit before, and I've heard arguments. Oh, that's just what an engineer on streams is supposed to be doing. But is supposed to know, and some people think, well, after you assemble teams that kind of have this, and it's sometimes projects don't struggle because the people working don't have the right knowledge. Oftentimes I find that in our business that people are knowledge seekers. So when people don't know something, they look for someone who does and learn more, or apply someone who has better knowledge. But I think about it also, so on the one hand, why certify the whole state, why even bother? But on the other end of it, about 15 or 20 years ago, IECA or whatever, it was the Erosion Sediment Control organization, and they were talking about certification and getting certified. Different states were issuing certification cards, and it's become important. It's become meaningful and valuable, and especially with with a range of backgrounds entering the industry, people doing construction compliance and oversight, and permit compliance and things like this. So you look at that, or another good certification that we've seen pop up and become more meaningful in recent decades, the floodplain manager. Now, some people, it's a good certification. They might have a different technical background. Some engineers think, well, you're an engineer. You either know if you know it or if you don't. But so my point being, I think certification is meaningful, and despite whatever criticisms we might see, we've seen where certification has been beneficial to our good stewardship. Floodplain managers, sediment erosion control inspection, such.
Yeah, and I would think that this would be kind of a little bit of a precursor, or maybe even apart from certification. because it's just more of a self-evaluation. Um, you know, I've always struggled with the idea of certification, just because somebody has to certify the people, and I've never really felt like, it seems like a hard thing to think that somebody could certify everybody for this field. But anyways, it could be a starting block towards that. Thank you, Josh.
Dave, good morning. This is George. How are you?
Doing great.
Good. Well, I wanted to echo your comments just there, which is I've explored and been involved with a lot of different programs, from the brownfields realm to the mitigation realm, and every scenario there was efforts to look at certification. And I think your point about this question about who's certifying, does it become a protectionist vehicle versus an educational vehicle? And I think your points about, I think the self-evaluation is a great idea, because it, I think at the end of the day, it really is about the education. It's not about the certification. And the more you can create a concrete approach to that, and online efforts and things of that nature that people can plug into for resources, I think it's an excellent thing. Certification, though, I come back to, it's like, are you certifying if you have to be certified for each of the 6 categories, or all of them, or some of them, or hey, I'm a certified stream hydrologist. You start parsing through this, and again, it has its warts.
Yeah, George, the paper discusses saying that, you have professionals of a certain educational background that says, okay, well, this is your minimum level of learning for each of these topics if you're going to be a stream ecologist, if you're going to be a stream biologist doing stream restoration work, if you're going to be an engineer doing stream restoration work. So they kind of had a different matrix that was a minimum for these different levels. So if you're going to be operating as this part of the stream restoration team, these are the minimums you should have, is how they presented in 2014. So I don't know if that's the most appropriate way to move forward with it. That's how it was presented.
So you could have certified stream biologist or certified stream hydrologist. Is that the thought?
Yeah, it would be the idea is you would have you'd say I met the minimum self-evaluation criteria for a certified stream restoration biologist or a certified stream restoration engineer type of thing.
Gotcha.
So that's.
But self-evaluation in the education, to me, is a great way to at least start. To Brad's point about, well, if you've got information online, you don't have to recreate a whole framework. And maybe, Brad, what happens is you allow the community to evolve about their view of, once they're involved with evaluating this stuff, their view of whether a certification becomes important.
So Luis, Ken, Mason, Bassett, you guys have all, a little bit sooner in the field. Would something like this be beneficial for you, or you kind of already know that you don't know everything, or you kind of don't worry too much about it, or would there be any value in something like this?
I mean, I think we definitely know that we don't know very much, but I mean, from my standpoint, I think kind of knowing what level of something I know would be pretty beneficial, because then that also helps with moving forward. Like, what do I need to focus on? What do I need to maybe try and expand my knowledge in? So I think it would be pretty beneficial.
Good. Thank you, Mason.
Dave, a question for you in terms of how and again, I haven't read the papers and will do so. How clearly have they articulated the the types of knowledge or the depth of knowledge that's needed in the 6 categories? I mean, is that spelled out somewhere? I mean, is that something that we could look at, or has anybody taken the time to figure that out yet, or not, or made a stab at it, I guess perhaps is a better way to describe it.
Yeah, the 6 learning levels in particular have been, are probably at a better place because it's been around longer for that type of learning. So those are a pretty good place and well defined. The outcomes for each one of the topic areas is what probably would need to have a lot of work done on it. They had some people take stabs at it, but I would think somebody like River shared, we get a group together, we could basically have that be a working document. And, part of what people could do is, if Gina's on the line and as our pairing biologist, she wanted to keep up to date the areas that she considered herself an L6 learner on, then she could just kind of take that one, work with some people, and just kind of keep that area up to date, so that as things advance, as things change, that outcome desired is relevant still. So it's almost like you'd need a person to take on 1 or 2 of these concepts and kind of keep the outcomes up to date for people to be able to self-evaluate. You might have some people that could do 3 of the topics, but I doubt anybody could do much more of 3 of the topics because most people aren't going to be kind of the evaluation learner on more than 3 of these topics.
I think we put it on the agenda, Dave, and I think there have been a couple of points that I think we need to, one, certainly in terms of the horsepower, we don't have the horsepower to get into this yet, unless somebody wants to jump on this, but I think that I think we need to let this perk a little bit. I welcomed Mason's comments about the fact that he felt it would be useful. I mean, one of the things that's really good about it is it helps you know what you don't know, which is a big problem for people because most people don't know what they don't know. And I think it's really important if you can help someone understand what they don't know, because someone who doesn't understand what they don't know is more dangerous than somebody who does understand what they don't know. But anyway, so yeah, I think it's worth rolling this log around. I think it's going to be a while before something comes of it. But anyway, so.
That's what initially I liked a bunch about it is I remember I've known in my career that I don't know a whole lot for a while, but I don't know what I don't know a whole lot about a lot of times. So for me, I think of some of the things related to the archaeology on some projects we've worked on. I don't really understand enough to know what I'm missing related to archaeology because it's just not what I do.
Yep.
So, but to realize how inadequate I am in that and how I can advance, it's helpful in communications.
Okay.
All right. Well, hey guys, have a good week. I'll stay on the line until anybody wants to nobody else is here to talk to, and then we'll see you next week, if not before.
Dave, I'll call you in a while to talk to you about Alabama a bit. I got your text, so thanks for the update on that. But I want to share some background information.
Thanks, Dave.
See you.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, George.
Hey, Dave. Morning.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, I wanted to talk to you about the Palisades Project, if you have time today.
I do, yeah. How about in about 10 minutes? I'll call you at get back on this line at 7:10.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right, see you then.
Hey, Matt.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, David already knows, but I wanted to let you know too, since you were one of my recommenders. I did get the certification through SER. So thank you very, very much.
Congratulations. You're very welcome.
Appreciate
Yeah, I got
your
mine
support.
too. We're both CURPs now. Yeah.
Yay!
Pretty cool.
Well, in all this discussion about certification, one of the things that stood out for me going through this whole process and being 55 as opposed to 20 something fresh out of college, just the enormous amount of experience that had to be taken into account as part of the learning units. And I was grateful for that, because when I was an undergraduate, we didn't have college classes like that. You know, as a senior at Purdue, my senior thesis was inbreeding and outbreeding depression in zoo situations. And that was like the very beginning. We didn't even have the word conservation biology or restoration ecology. And it wasn't until I got to be a graduate student that the courses started to show up. So it was amazingly intense, Matt.
It was intense. You know, I know exactly what you mean. I spent a lot of time on that application and
Yeah.
thinking through, because I was part of that same transition. We didn't have all the classes that were listed, you know, that recommended on that application and whatnot that people have today. And
Exactly.
trying to fit my education and background into that mold. But it did, after you really thought it through and you went through all their lists. It fit. It fit. What I
Yeah.
liked, I thought CERP did a really good job putting together that application process, especially the method that they used, because it forced you to review all of their tenets, you know, as far as ecological restoration was concerned, and what an ecological restoration practitioner should do. The moral and the ethical things associated with it, and you couldn't get to the next step in the process of an application until you had done all those reviews. I thought it was really good. And Dave, one thing I was hanging on the line, I just want to point out to Dave real quick. You know, both the SERP, the Society for Ecological Restoration, and Wetland Society for Wetland Scientists, both their certifications, Dave, have a in training or in process level where, you know, someone can apply that meets all of the, you know, the educational criteria, but they may not have the actual in the field experience criteria yet, but they can go ahead and apply and get that first step certification if they've got the education background covered, and then they can come back later and apply for, you know, the full certification, and it saves them time when they come back later to apply for the certification. So just something to think about. I'm sure you guys are going to come up with something great. I wouldn't worry about rushing into it. I'd take my time and make sure it's exactly what you guys want, want to see for this industry.
Yeah, I think we're in a unique situation where since River Share's a volunteer group and it's more of a cooperative, we might have an opportunity to put something together and have people share a little bit more than the argument that comes when engineers are told to join a society of wetland scientists, or wetland scientists are told to try to join a society for engineers. So.
Agreed. And Dave, I also wanted to thank you again for your Monday morning devotions. I think they're awesome. This was a great one today.
Oh.
Thanks again.
Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you. Have a great day, Matt. Hey, how are you guys doing? How are you guys doing down there with family and stuff?
Family's all fine. Lots of COVID positives. Lots of folks who are, you know, have been exposed to COVID positive folks unknowingly in the last couple of weeks, and you know, just the cases continue to rise. One thing that we've noted anecdotally from some friends that we've seen going through these things is that a lot of the tests that come back negative are not correct. We've had friends who have tested negative repeatedly and yet have all of the symptoms of COVID, and after going to the doctor and getting into the hospital, have been diagnosed with COVID. So it's a little bit confusing. The tests are not exactly, that makes it even more, it makes you even more nervous. If somebody's coming back and saying they tested negative, it doesn't necessarily mean they were really negative. It's just kind of a weird time right now. And we've seen a lot of anecdotal response from healthcare professionals, still baffled by the disease and the fact that some people don't show any symptoms at all, and yet other people end up on life support on a respirator, and it doesn't seem to be a pattern, a known pattern or a known reason just yet. So just keep praying, man. This thing's not over.
Yeah.
We got a ways to go.
We will. Yeah, Abby got tested before I came down to Bodark. She dropped me off last time I was down in Bodark, and she went down to Denver and got tested at the Jewish Medical Center for antibodies. I mean, because we thought we had it back in early March. And she came back negative, but then after the test came back, they came with a test and said it's a 40% false negative. I was like, well, wow. That's
Wow.
But with that said, I mean, it's the Jewish Medical Center. It's literally their research. They're trying to figure out a way if they can figure out more positives and stuff. So she's like, well, Dave, maybe you should go down too. And I was like, well, but so if I go down and get tested positive, then does that really tell us anything?
Oh man, we'll give my best to Abigail and hug Stanley for me. It looks like he's been having a great time this morning.
Yeah, he got up early this morning, but fell asleep with my boring message.
No, that was a great message. Take care,
See you
Jan.
guys.
I'll see you guys later. Take care.
Have a great day, David.
Hey, thanks, Gina. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Hey, Josh, you still online?
This is Luis.
Hey, Luis.
Hello. Good day.
Hey.
Just checking. Do you need any help today? Do you have anything that you need help?
Yeah, I probably won't need a whole lot of help today. Tomorrow I probably will. Today I get so overwhelmed with meetings on Monday mornings that with me not attending them last Monday, I expect that I should probably attend them today. So probably the first that I'll be reaching out to you would be in the afternoon. So.
Okay, that sounds good then. Have a good day.
All right. Talk to you later. Have a good day. Thanks, Luis. Hey, Josh, are you still online? Going once? Going twice?